Okay, guys, if you are watching tonight, welcome once again to my Friday night wealth creation course. If this is your first time tuning in, my name is Jerry. I'm the owner and founder here at Wealth Dynamics. And every Friday, probably for the last 2 or 3 years, I've been coming to you every single week with a live course on personal finances. Okay, and I talk about money. I teach about how to earn more of it. I call this the triangle of wealth: how to earn more of it, how to save more of it, how to invest more of it, to build wealth for yourself, for your family, for the people that matter in your lives. And one of the big reasons why I do this course is because it's not information I had when I was a kid. Growing up, I was very interested in money. Okay, I was very interested in money. If you're like that, if you were like that, I want to see some hearts. I want to see some likes. If you always had a keen interest in money, you just wanted to know how it worked, and it kind of just had your attention. I was like that, but I didn't have anyone in my family. I didn't have anyone in my family that was good with money. So it was something I was interested in, but I didn't have anyone I could reach out to. I didn't have people in my life that could be my role model. I didn't even know somebody that was doing well with money until I was probably 15 or 16 years old. So there's not even like a real life person I could look at and say, oh, that's the model. Right. So it was just foreign. It was literally like I thought the only way people could have wealth was if they were on TV. If you were in a movie or a show, or you were a Hollywood star, or that was pretty much it. That was the only way I thought somebody could have wealth. So when I started to really study, and I grew older and started reading, trying to learn more and more about money on my own, I still started getting just weird information. I would read this book, it would say do one thing. I'd read this book, it'd say do an entirely different thing. And so I walked away from it confused. Okay, I didn't know what to do because one person said one thing, another person said something entirely different. And at the end of the day, I didn't know the difference because I didn't have any better information to tell me which one was the right one. So what I ended up doing was nothing. I didn't make progress. And I just stayed there in financial confusion for such a long time. And eventually I decided to get into the financial industry. Okay, I became a financial advisor. Okay, this was a number of years ago. And my mindset was, if I can't learn about this, then I'm going to go get a job in this field and I'm going to learn from the experts. Okay, I'm going to learn from the people that know, the professionals, right? And I did that. I got licensed. I worked for several firms. I started my own firm, and I became very successful in that industry. And I almost lost sight of my original goal. My original goal was to understand money and understand wealth. And instead of understanding money and understanding wealth, I understood a bunch of retirement plans and all the rules and terms, and a bunch of mutual funds and stocks and all the rules and terms with those. That's not wealth. Okay, wealth is the ability to treat money like oxygen. It means that I have passive income that exceeds my expenses, taxes, and savings. Okay, it has nothing to do with what product I put my money in. It has nothing to do with the age that I'm allowed to pull money out of a retirement account, or what this financial tool or product is called. It has nothing to do with that. Okay, it's an actual lifestyle. Wealth is a lifestyle. So when I started looking at, man, I'm learning about all this stuff, but I'm not building wealth, and my clients aren't building wealth, and we're still pretty much in the same position we started in. I had to take a step back. Okay, if you've ever had to do that, you know what I mean. You get so caught up in the picture of like what's all the moving parts and the technical stuff here and all the ins and outs of it, that you basically have to take a step back and look at, what did I get involved in this in the first place for? And as I started taking a step back, I started realizing the stuff that I was doing, that I was teaching people, that I was helping people with. Wealthy people didn't actually use any of that stuff. Okay, wealthy people, they don't invest in a 401k. Wealthy people don't own mutual funds. Wealthy people don't buy diversified stock portfolios that their Edward Jones financial advisor told them to get. That's not how they do it. Okay, so when I started studying, well, what do wealthy people actually do? I was shocked. Right, we see a lot of this, especially now in the most recent times of like wealth disparity. Right, the top 1%, the top 10%, they have all the money. It seems like they're always getting richer, and that others aren't. Right, we see that all the time, and it's true. They are always getting richer and others aren't. Now we can look at that and say they're evil, and we should take their money away and give it to the government, or we can say, maybe they're onto something, and maybe I should figure out what they're doing, and maybe I should copy them. I picked the second one. I was like, all right, they're doing something. Obviously, it's working. a lot better than the average person. What is it? And as I started studying more and more, I realized, guys, it's not a level playing field. Imagine being in an MMA match. Anyone like watching MMA, UFC? Imagine being in an MMA match against a guy that had 8 limbs. That's what it's like. It's not even the same thing. Like, they're not even on the same playing field as the average person is. And as I started studying more and more, I realized that there are strategies they're using to double the amount of money they're working with. Not just their returns. Like, I'm saying, if they put in 100 grand, they can turn the 100 grand into 200 grand before they go invest it. Already they've doubled their money before even putting it into a deal. That's not the same playing field, right? So I started studying, what are these people doing? And what I'm going to share with you tonight is what I found. There's a very specific strategy that I see all the time. When I started studying wealthy people, I saw it over and over and over and over and over. And when something happens that many times, it's hard to ignore. It's hard to say, oh, this is just a coincidence. I actually had to dig deep into it. And that trend is wealthy people invest their money in assets. They then leverage against those assets and invest in more assets. And I know that sounds really simple. It almost sounds so simple that it's easy to miss. They buy one asset. That asset's now producing for them. They then borrow against, leverage against that first asset and use the money they've leveraged to go get more assets. Now they have 2 or they have 3 assets where the other person beginning might only have 1. Right? If I don't know that, like, it's not even something that I can Google. Like, how do I take, 100 grand and turn it into 200 grand before I even invest? That's not even Googleable. Right? And if you do Google it, you're going to get like a bunch of pyramid schemes and weird stuff, right? But I'm saying that this is something that I started studying and watching, and I realized, man, they actually do something that doubles their money for them. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. Now, really quick, I'm going to share my screen. And as we're going about this tonight, if you guys have questions, I want you to drop them in the comments. I will get to them at the very end. So if you have questions, feel free to drop those in the comments. I'm going to flip Instagram around right now. So if you guys have questions, make sure you drop those in the comments. I'm happy to answer those. And again, tonight's course is on how to leverage assets to build wealth. Okay. Not how to build a retirement nest egg, not how to be financially independent when I'm 60, to leverage assets to build wealth. That's what we're focused on. Okay. So leveraging the 3 most stable assets. Okay, the reason I say stable, and you'll see what I mean by this in a minute here, the reason that I say stable is because we are leveraging, and with leverage, I've got to make sure that I'm investing in stuff that I can actually rely on, which means I'm not doing this with stocks. I'm not doing this with stuff that can go up and down, right? So what are the 3 most stable assets out there? These are the 3 we're talking about today. We have life insurance, we have gold, we have real estate. Life insurance, gold, and real estate. When I say stable, I mean stuff that's not going to lose money. I mean stuff that's not going to be volatile, that's not going to go up and down, it's not going to bottom out. It's not, in March of 2020 going to lose 30% of its value just like that. Life insurance is stable. It's been around for almost 200 years. Never once lost money, right? So we know that that's stable. Gold is stable as well. Okay, we all know gold has been around for literally like centuries and thousands of years. And then real estate is also very stable. We know real estate, we know it's not going anywhere. It's a very stable asset. Now, why are we investing in these particularly? Right, so first, life insurance has never lost money, like I said. So when I talk about stability, I can rely on it. It averages a 3 to 5% tax-free growth rate each year, and it's never once lost money. Okay, I can't say that if I own stocks. I can't even say that if I've got money in the bank. Who here remembers, if you're older, 15, 20 years ago, what interest rates were in banks? Okay, and then what are they today? That's not stability. A lot of us keep our money in the bank because they want it to be safe. That's a dwindling return over time. Okay, the other thing that we've got to look at with banks is there's plenty of banks that have actually gone under. That's not stability. Life insurance, these companies we work with, they've never gone under. They've always made money. They've never lost money. And that's the rate that we're looking at, right? Gold has averaged an 8% return over the last 20 years. And basically, it's been around longer than humans have. We've had gold here on this planet for who knows how long. Okay, so these are 3 stable assets that we're looking at, that we're trying to invest in. And then finally, we have real estate. Real estate's averaged about a 9% return over the last 20 years. It's been around as long as people have. We've always put roofs over our heads. We've always established real estate. It's a very good, stable investment. Okay, so these are the types of assets we're looking to invest in. And so essentially, let me flip Instagram around here. Essentially, when we're talking about investing, we're not just talking about, like you're going to see in a second, we're not just talking about buying the asset. Okay, a lot of us when we're investing, we're single track minded. We think about, I'm going to buy this thing and this thing is all I'm ever going to have. And hopefully it goes up in value because I need it to, right? What I'm saying is we're going to buy this thing and we're going to leverage against it. I'm going to show you what I mean in a minute. We're going to leverage against it to go buy more stuff, buy more assets. And so it's very important that the primary asset we start with on this cycle is stable, that it's not going anywhere. Okay, so we're not doing stocks, we're not doing Bitcoin, we're not doing trading, we're not doing flips. Like, we're doing stuff that will be there. Now, the next part of this, what does it mean to leverage? Let me flip Insta back around here. What does it mean to leverage? First, to leverage an asset, it means I have to own the asset in the first place. I have to own the asset in the first place. An asset is a thing that I own that has value. Right? So I'm not talking about other people's money and no money down. I'm saying you need to own the asset first. If I'm leveraging life insurance, I need to first own the life insurance. If I'm leveraging gold, I need to first own the gold. If I'm leveraging real estate, I need to first own the real estate. Okay, because when I study the wealthy people that built this country, they didn't start out doing zero money down deals. They owned things first. They had a foundation first. So this idea that has really only been around since like the 1970s and 80s of, let me buy this single family home or this fourplex or this duplex and put no money into it and hope that I make $300 a month in cash flow. That's not wealth. That's not how people have ever done it. That's not how it's going to continue to be done. That's literally like just a fixation, right? I have to own the deal first. Okay, I have to own the deal first. Now, second, once I own it, I'm now going to borrow against it. I'm going to borrow against the asset, right? So if I own life insurance, I'm going to own the asset. I own it. It's producing for me. While it's producing for me, I'm borrowing against it, right? I want to illustrate this for you too, so you can kind of see visually what this looks like, right? So let's say I have real estate, right? I took dollars, put those into real estate. I now own the real estate, right? Now this real estate, let's say this is going to make 9%, right? Okay, 9% on this deal. I could keep that and just make 9%. Better than most people, better than the bank, right? But what if I could borrow 80% of the value of this real estate and I could take that money here and I could go make another 9%, right? Now I'm making 9 here and I'm making 9 here. Guys, that's an 18% gross return. Gross meaning before my interest, before fees, before taxes. I'm making 18% between these two deals. Do you see what I mean? If I didn't know this strategy, I would stop here, right? I would only look at the real estate. I'd just be like, well, I'm going to buy real estate and I'm going to keep it and I'm going to hold it and it's going to be paid off. And when I'm 60 or 70 years old, I'll have something, right? We go here and do this move, this simple little move. Now I'm making 18%. Okay. Someone said 18% is boring. That somebody is apparently financially illiterate. 18% is what I'm making on this deal. Okay. So I have to first own the real estate, right? I have to first own the real estate. I have to first own the life insurance. I have to first own the gold. For those of us that are watching this right now, tuning out because I'm saying we have to own things, it's because you're not doing anything. You're not earning income. You're not saving. You're not actually succeeding financially right now. I've got to change that before any of this stuff matters. So if I'm watching this and it's going over my head and I'm complaining, I'm bored, you know, this doesn't make sense or this doesn't look exciting, it's because I lack discipline. I lack knowledge. I actually have to go earn income. I have to save more money than I'm spending. I have to do that consistently over and over and over and over because that real estate deal is probably going to cost me 100 grand. And I'm not going to whip 100 grand out of nowhere if I didn't first earn the money and save the money. right? So this is where the discipline comes in. A lot of people don't build wealth, not because it's hard, it's because they lack the discipline. It's boring. It's not exciting. It's not Bitcoin up and down all over the screen. It's not picking stocks and hoping you get rich. It's the same disciplined behavior over and over and over. Same thing that makes a good athlete. Same thing that makes a successful business person, right? So I've got to master the fundamentals to be able to actually even be in a position to own assets. Once I own the assets, now I can borrow against the assets because I actually freaking have some. Okay, I get passionate about this because I see, like, I just watched a YouTube video. This guy saying everybody should start their own fund. You know, everyone should not start their own fund. If I'm broke, I have no business starting an investment fund. Like there's something to be said for earning lots of income, saving lots of the income, and then putting that into assets that actually show that I have something. I've got a notch in my belt. Right? Now I can actually go play. Now I actually have some credibility. Now I actually have something to swing with. Now I can borrow against it. Say, and then I'm borrowing against it to acquire an income producing asset. That's the key here. I'm buying an asset, getting it, borrowing against it, taking that money borrowed and buying another asset. Right? That simple little flow there. Now, the next thing we're looking at on this is my second step. Now, once I've done this, let me flip Insta back around. Once I've done this, my second step, right, is to get the asset. Now, if I'm getting life insurance, I can own it. Let me pull my pen back up. I can own it, right? And if I own it on life insurance, let me go back here. Sometimes the pen screws with me. I can borrow typically 90% of it. Meaning if I have $100,000 in life insurance, I could borrow about 90 grand. Right? That's like the maximum threshold of what I can borrow. Now, the benefit is that 90%, I'm going to go invest it. I'm going to make 8 to 12% on it. Meanwhile, my life insurance that I own is still paying me 3 to 5%. Right? On top of the 8 to 12. Okay, you do the math on that. If I can make 12 on the deal and I make 5 on the life insurance, 12 and 5 is 17. Show me somewhere else where I'm going to make a 17% yield on my money. Right? Like this is critical, guys, because if I'm in a mutual fund or a stock or a 401k, I'm being told 7% is a good return. I'm being told just put it away and it'll compound in an index fund at 7%. And when it's done, I'll be wealthy and I can retire 60. No, guys, wealthy people are doing freaking 17. 17. They're doing basically 3 times that. You can't just be at 7% like this. And this is the great thing about this is something anyone can do if they have the knowledge and the strategy to get there. Now, the second one I could do is gold, right? So I can own gold. If I own gold, I can borrow up to 75% of the gold. I'm going to clear off some of these other marks just to keep the screen clean here. I can borrow up to 75% of the gold. All right. Now with the gold, this money here, I'm going to borrow, I'm going to invest it here at 8 to 12%. Right now, gold, like we talked about over here, gold is making about 8%. 8%. Okay, so if I'm looking at buying gold, I'm going to make my 8% return. I'm going to make my 8 to 12%. If I make 12 and 8, that's 20. On 75% of that money, it's growing in 2 locations at once. Okay, now the difference here, and I'm going to dive into this in a little bit, gold is riskier than life insurance. So yes, I can make 8 up here, and that's awesome. Right? So I can make 8% up here, and that's really cool and exciting. But here we go. But I could also lose money on this deal. Okay, so it's more risky. If it's something that I'm not a master at, it's going to be a lot harder for me to do and like have less education on, because there's more things that could go wrong. The final one is real estate, right? We talked about real estate a second ago. I can own real estate. I can borrow up to 80% of it, right? And that real estate is going to pay me maybe 10, 12%, right? And then top of that, I'm making about 12%. That's going to be potentially a 24% return. So I've got to really look at this. If I'm an investor, if I'm watching this right now, I have a couple options, right? I can keep doing what I'm doing, which could be a variety of things. It could be nothing. I could be broke watching this on Instagram. I could be on Facebook and I've got my 401k and I'm used to that and I'm making my 6% and my 12% or my 6% and my 7% return. I could be just buying real estate and earning, you know, a 12% cash on cash return. And those are all better than nothing. But the next step is, how do I then take that asset and multiply it into another asset, so that I actually can start to get some headway? Because if I don't do this, it's going to be a game of addition, right? Addition always takes longer. If I can multiply, it goes much faster. Okay. So that's the example of what I can do. Now, why am I doing this? Why would I even do this in the first place? There's a couple reasons I'm going to go over. The first reason being, I get uninterrupted compounding interest. Who's ever heard of compounding interest? Okay, if you have, I want to see some hearts, some likes, some comments. If you've heard of compounding interest. Now there's a quote. I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys the quote because it's hilarious. Who's ever heard the quote? It's attributed to Albert Einstein. Compounding interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Who's ever heard that quote before? Okay. Oh, Rich has heard it. Rich, I'm about to break your heart, man. Albert Einstein never said that. That quote was distributed by a company called Security Investment Company as an advertisement to buy their mutual funds in the 1900s, and they attribute it falsely to Albert Einstein. Why? Because if Einstein said it, everyone's going to listen, right? Now, it's not wrong. Compounding interest is a great thing, but the problem is that an investment like a mutual fund doesn't actually earn compounding interest. Okay, an investment that can go up and down, doesn't actually earn compounding interest. Compounding interest can only be earned when it's uninterrupted. Okay, so I'm earning in this deal uninterrupted compounding interest. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that if I have life insurance in one hand earning 3 to 5% tax-free, and I have a real estate deal that's paying me 8 to 12, I'm earning interest no matter what. That's truly uninterrupted compounding interest. If I have gold that's paying me 8% and I have a real estate deal that I've borrowed against to do that gold with the gold, and I've put that into the real estate deal, and that's earning on both sides, that's truly compounding interest, because I'm going to earn on the gold and the real estate no matter what. It's never going to be interrupted. Same thing if I do real estate and real estate, it's never interrupted. That's the only way to truly earn compounding interest. Okay, so I'm doing this for compounding interest. I'm also doing this so I can double my asset pool, right? So if I have $100,000 in life insurance and I borrow 90% of it, then I just doubled my money without even investing yet. I took 100,000, I've turned it into 190,000, right? And if I do that, that's more money I have to invest. That's more money that I can earn a return on. This is super critical to understand. This is a big reason why I'm going to do this. I also earn double rates of return. I get on the gold, I get 8%, right? So I get my 8 on the gold and I get my 12 on the real estate. That's double rates of return on the same money. Okay, now this one is important. The reason why, and many of us don't know this, this is what banks do when we give them money. Who here uses a bank? Okay, anyone use a bank? If you use a bank, I use a bank, right? When we deposit money in a bank, they do not leave it in their account. They don't put it in a shoebox and put a little bow on top and stick it in the vault and leave it there till you come back. Okay, the bank takes my money and your money and they loan it out to other people. They loan that money out to other people, and that comes in the form of a car loan, a mortgage, a credit card. So they're doing this very concept. Did you know that when I give the bank one of my dollars, they can loan that same dollar to 10 different people at the same time? That means that they're earning, if they're able to make 5% on a car loan, and they do that times 10 people, they're making 50%. 50% of my money. So I can look at this and gawk and say, that's not real. That's unrealistic. I don't understand. This looks different. This is new. This conflicts with my fixated belief system. Or I can realize, oh crap, I'm right now on the wrong end of this, right? Because when I go to the bank, they're doing this to my money. Why don't I do it to my own money, right? Now, the other thing is this gives me the ability to access my gains without paying taxes. This one is so important. So important. I'm going to sketch this out for you, right? So let's say that I invest $100, right? $100, and I make a 12% return on that 100, right? Easy math on that. $100, 12%, I've made $12. Now, anyone that's ever invested knows that I don't actually get to keep this $12, right? What I mean by that is as soon as I make 12 bucks, the IRS is like, hey, Jerry, you made 12 bucks. We want some. We need our cut, man. We get 15% of that. We get 20% of that, right? So because I realized the gain, meaning I actually made money, the IRS wants some of that money. Right. I don't like that. I don't like paying taxes. I've never met someone that actually does. And so when it gets down to it, this style of investing, because I'm borrowing, I get to access my gains without ever paying taxes. Right. So if I have $100 here and I make 12%, but I don't actually take the 12% out. Instead, I borrow against it and I take out 75% of that number and I put that into another deal. I've never actually realized a gain. I've never pulled that 100,000 out yet because I did not pull that 100,000 out. The IRS cannot touch it. The IRS can't tax a loan, guys. They can only tax income. They can only tax a gain. So by securing assets like real estate, like gold, like life insurance, I can eternally not pay taxes on that money because I always just borrow against it. Instead of pulling out a gain and actually saying I made something, I just say, hey, I haven't actually sold it yet. It's still there. It's in the deal. I borrowed against it, but that's not a gain, right? And so I'm able to keep that money tax-free. Now, I also get to write off my interest expense. Now, what I mean by that is if I'm borrowing against, let's say I'm borrowing against real estate. Okay, I'm borrowing against real estate. I might pay them 5% interest to borrow. Now it's okay because I'm making more than that, right? So if I'm borrowing against it at 5% to go invest in a deal that pays me 12%, I'm making a positive 7% spread. And that 7% is what I keep. Now this 5 that I'm paying in interest, that's called an investment expense. It's tax deductible. So I'm going to write this off on my taxes. We're going to have Uncle Sam help pay for it, right? So I've taken effectively an asset. I've borrowed against it. I've used it to make more money. The cost of doing business on that transaction is going to be subsidized by the government because I'm going to write it off on my taxes. Guys, this is like an incredible way to invest. Like brilliant. Now, I want you to realize the magnitude of this. If I don't know this, let's say let's say I'm swinging hammers at something trying to break it down, or even better, I'm trying to chop a tree down with an axe, right? If I don't know this, I'm swinging with one axe over and over and over, just banging on the tree, trying to get it to fall down. If I do this strategy, I could be swinging with 2 axes or 3 axes or 4 axes or however many times I want to do this. Right, I'm going to cut the tree down much faster. I'll be able to go further and further and further while the first guy is still swinging with one axe. Right, so that's the importance of this. When we see wealthy people accelerate at the rapid speed they do, it really is because they're doing stuff like this. Like you can probably kind of now wrap your mind around how they're doubling their net worths over and over and over. They have 3 or 4 axes swinging at the same time on one transaction. If I've only got one, of course they're going to outdo me. Of course they're going to make more money than I do. Of course they're going to have a higher net worth than I have, right? So like this was very eye-opening for me. Now examples of this, I'm going to go into some math with you guys here. We're going to show you guys some life insurance, some gold, and some real estate, right? So let me pull up my browser. First one I'm going to show you guys here is real estate. Let me just erase some of my calculations here. So let's say I am 29 years old. Okay, I'm 29 years old. I'm going to invest for 15 years. Let's say that I'm making 12% on my money in this real estate deal. Sorry, that's not the years. Let's say I've put 100,000 into it. 15 years. No contributions, and every time I get 50 grand, I reinvest it, right? So what this is showing is it's saying I have 100 grand over 15 years, my 100 grand will turn into $485,000, right? Now, let's say that I take this 100 grand and I go do a real estate deal with it. Okay, so we're just going to use a compounding interest calculator. So I've got my 100 grand, I borrow against it, right? So if we go back to the rules here, let's say on this real estate deal, I can borrow 80% of it. So I can take out $80,000 and I put this 80,000 here for the same 15 years. And let's say that I put this into a deal where I can make 10%. We'll even go lower than I had in the first place, right? So at the end of this, I have $334,000. This is on the second deal. On the first deal, I have $485,000. You guys catching this? 485 plus 334. What is that? 800 something $1,000, right? That's almost double the money that I'm now making on this transaction, because I had the real estate deal first. That's going to pay me my 12% rate. I borrow against it 80%. I borrow against it. I put that into a deal that's now earning 10%, and I make another $334,000 on top. Okay, again, this is my gross return. This is before interest. This is before taxes. This is before anything, right? But this is a real life example of what can happen. Now, this is, again, very, very simple math. If I look at this again, I got the 80,000 by borrowing against this. Now, back to my very first point on the first slide, I would have had to have this in the first place. I would have had to have 100 grand. Okay, but let's do it on an even smaller amount. Let's say that I have 50,000. I put that in a deal that's making 12%. I'm doing that for 15 years and reinvesting it, and I'm able to borrow 80% of that, which is going to be 40,000. Still, I have 167,000 here, and I have 195,000 here. Okay, if I don't borrow against it, I'm only going to have $195,000. If I do borrow against it, I have 195,000 plus 167. What is that, like 250? Right, I think 350 is actually what that comes out to. So around 350. Okay, this is on real estate, right? The next one we're going to look at is gold. Let's say that I'm doing gold, right? So I have let's say again 50,000 in gold. Gold makes about 8%. Let's say I do this one for 20 years. Okay, I have 50,000 at 8% for 20 years. In 20 years, that's going to turn into $165,000, right? Which is not bad. Like, I would rather have 165,000 than nothing. Or I borrow against that. I put that 40,000 into a real estate deal that's going to make 10% again, and I have 167,000 on top of the money that I had here in the first place. Now, again, this one I did 20 years long, if you remember. So let's actually make this second deal match that. Let's make this 20 years as well. This is now turned into $269,000. Simply just borrowing. Guys, this is not like I'm day trading and it's a very complex thing. I literally bought gold. The gold will go up over time. It's done 8% over the last 20 years. I've borrowed against it, and then I'm putting that into a real estate deal that pays me 10%. And because of that, I've made this money on this side, and I've made this money on this side. Very simple, right? And then the final one is life insurance. Let's say that I do life insurance and I do 4% here. Let's say I borrow on my life insurance. So I've got 100,000 in there. Okay, so in 20 years, that's going to turn into 195 grand. And let's say that I put that 90% of it, which is 90,000, away at 10%, right? So I have 100,000 in life insurance. That turns into 195, right? Simple. Then I take the 90,000 I've borrowed against it. I put that into a deal for 20 years at 10%, nothing extra going into it. And that turns into 605. By borrowing against the life insurance, I've added an additional 200 grand to the 605 I was going to make anyways by doing this deal. You guys catching that? So this is really what it's like. It's very easy to see which ones make the biggest return, right? We all saw real estate did like 12%, gold did 8, life insurance did 3 to 5. So I want to dive into some more of the information about each of these. So I want to talk about where to start. So I'm sitting here watching this and I'm like, huh. So apparently I can borrow against this stuff, and it looks like real estate is the highest one. I should borrow against that first. Wrong. Okay. We're actually going to start with life insurance. The reason why we're going to start with life insurance is life insurance cannot lose money. No matter what, it cannot lose money. It's never lost money. It won't happen. It's impossible. Okay. So if I'm starting, that's the one I'm going to start with. I'm not going for the highest return right now. The first rule of investing after never invest in something you don't understand is never lose money, right? I could lose money in real estate. I could lose money with gold. I can't lose money with life insurance. So I'm doing life insurance first. Now realize life insurance combined with real estate still gives me a better return than doing real estate with no life insurance. It's always going to be a higher number that I make by including the life insurance. So although it does not produce as much, it's more stable and it's a safer gradient to start with. Right? Like think about when you were a baby, you learned to walk before you learned how to drive, right? So could you imagine your parents being like, all right, you know, you're 6 months old now. We're going to put you behind the wheel of the F-150. Good luck. If you fall down and crash, just get up and try again. You wouldn't know what to do. You would get in a wreck instantly, right? So same thing with life insurance. We're not going to try and drive before we know how to walk with this. This is leverage. We are borrowing. So we want to make sure we do it in a way that works. And at the end, we don't lose money. So we start with life insurance. Second one we do is gold. Gold is the second one. The reason why is it has a lower barrier to entry than real estate. I can do a gold, we call it a sacred account gold, buying the gold and borrowing against it. I can do that with 35 grand minimum, right? So if I purchase 35,000 worth of gold, I can begin using it right away. If I'm paying off debt, that's awesome. I've got $35,000 that I can borrow against and wipe out my credit cards or wipe out my student loan. And meanwhile, my 35,000 is still growing the entire time. Or if I have more, if I put in, I have a guy on Monday, we're going to do $375,000 gold investment. We're going to borrow against that and put that into a fund and do a deal. That's going to pay him income every single quarter. Right? So I can do these types of deals with gold, but it's a lower barrier to entry and it's also less risky than real estate. Right? Again, if I did the life insurance and it worked, good. Next step is gold. I do the gold and it works. Next step is real estate. So now I'm looking at real estate. Thirdly, I could purchase a single family home and live in it and borrow against it. I could purchase multifamily real estate, which means a duplex, two units or 2 apartments, triplex, which would be 3, or a fourplex, which would be 4. And I can put a line of credit on those properties and borrow against them. Okay. It will reduce my housing costs. I will have equity to invest, but it's going to take a little longer to do. And real estate has a lot more risk involved. Okay. There's more costs, more fees. There's more things that could go wrong. There's more moving parts. So we do that one last, right? So if I'm looking at that, that's the step by step. First, I do the life insurance. I borrow against that. Once I've got the hang of that, then I do gold. Once I've got the hang of that, then I do real estate. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to cover with you guys is what the risks are, right? What are the risks? What is the catch? We always have to understand the risks. Everything has a risk. Everything but life insurance, actually. Everything has a risk. Life insurance has 0. There's no risk to buy life insurance. It can't lose money. It can't go down in value. There's literally 0 risk, meaning I can borrow against my life insurance and I can basically be at peace knowing I'm not going to lose money. There's no way the deal can go wrong. There's no way they can call my loan. Like that's just going to be an easy, safe transaction. So if I have a very low risk tolerance, I might only do that, right? 0 risk. Gold has something called margin call risk. That's a bunch of financial jargon. What that means is, let's say I buy $100,000 worth of gold. Okay, and I go and I get a loan against it, and they say, great, we're going to loan you 80% of what you own, which would be 80,000. Awesome. What if the gold goes down in value though? Let's say the gold drops down to 95,000. I'm now overextended on my loan. I owe them more money than I actually have because I told them I had 100. Now I've only got 95. So that's the risk. The company could say, Jerry, you need to pay this loan down. Otherwise we're going to close your loan out and you're going to have to sell the gold. right? So I have to be in a position to either A, buy more gold so that I'm back up to 100,000, or B, I've got to pay my loan down so that I'm not exceeding the 80% value that they extended to me. So I've got margin call risk. That's what that is. I've also got interest rate risk. Typically, a gold loan is a variable interest rate, meaning when I'm borrowing, the interest that I'm paying could go up or down, depending on the market. Right now, it's probably going to go down because the market's terrible. The economy is terrible right now. So interest rates are very low. But if interest rates peaked, I might end up paying more interest than I planned on. Right. So I could probably get a gold loan for today for maybe 6% interest. That's great because I can go make 10 or 12. But if interest rates climbed and I started paying 12% on my gold loan, I'm not going to make the same money on that deal anymore. So that's a risk I've got to know, and I've got to be in agreement with and understand before I go into the deal. Right now, real estate is a little more complex. With real estate, I have economic risk, which means what if the economy tanks? What if the economy tanks and my real estate goes down, or something happens and it goes down in value, or my property burns down, or something like that? There's risk with the value of my real estate. Okay. I also have interest rate risk. If I'm borrowing against the real estate, what if the rates go up or down? If they go up, it's more expensive than I planned on. Right. And then third, I also have cost benefit risk. Right. So real estate is not free. Even if I pay cash for it, it's not free. I'm going to have utilities. I'm going to have insurance. I'm going to have taxes. I'm going to have expenses, all sorts of things that go along with owning real estate. And anyone that's been a landlord can attest that those things are usually more expensive than they were told, and they usually are fairly unexpected. And so it can be risky from the standpoint of it ends up costing more than I thought. Now, the other thing with real estate is there's vacancy risk, meaning if I'm renting a property out, one of my tenants might move out. I might have a unit open and I'm not making money on it when I thought I would be, right? So those are the risks involved. That's why real estate's at the bottom, by the way. Real estate, I've got way more risk. Gold, I have a little bit less risk. Life insurance, I have zero risk, right? So I'm doing those three in that order. And if I do that, then I'm going to be fine. If I jump into this though and I go right into real estate, there's a high chance I might lose my shirt because I'm not used to borrowing against assets. I'm not used to running real estate. I'm not used to being a landlord. Same thing with gold. If I've never done life insurance and I try and start with gold, that's kind of a high gradient for risk. So start with the life insurance. We call that the sacred account. Then we go to gold, which is the sacred account gold. Then we go to real estate. Now, what are the costs of doing something like this? Right? What are the costs? Life insurance, if I'm getting involved in this, there's going to be upfront cost to start up a policy. Right? I need to know that going into it. Every investment costs something. There's no such thing as a free investment. I will always pay something. So there's upfront cost in order to start a policy. Now with life insurance, I don't have any ongoing out-of-pocket costs. It's not going to be like I have to pay an annual fee, or I've got to pay rent or taxes or anything like that. It's just what I pay up front to establish it. Then I can start using it. Okay. Gold, there's upfront cost to purchase gold. Gold is not free. Okay. Like a lot of people will look at gold on the market and they'll see like, oh, it's trading at, let's say 1750 an ounce. What they don't realize is that's called spot price. That's just the market price. If you go buy gold, there's going to be fees. No matter who you go to, there's going to be fees. So I need to be prepared to pay fees up front when I buy the gold, right? So there's upfront costs to buy it. There's also what's called an origination fee. When I do the loan, they're typically going to charge me 1% or 2% on the loan. And then there's also storage costs. The gold has to go somewhere and they're going to charge me to store it. So I need to include all of those numbers in what I'm doing to make sure the math works. Real estate, what are the costs? So I have closing costs. Closing costs mean that I'm going to pay money when I close the loan on the real estate. I'm going to have realtor commissions. When I buy the property, I will pay costs to own it. There's title fees. I'm going to pay the title company. I'm going to pay for credit pulls, all sorts of things up front. There's insurance on owning the property. There are utilities. If it's in a homeowners association, I'm going to pay HOA dues. If there's any property whatsoever, there's going to be taxes, there's maintenance, there's repairs. Those are all expenses I have to be prepared for. Okay, I've got to be prepared for that. And again, real estate is one of those things that if it's done right, it's very profitable. If it's done wrong, I can lose money very quickly, right? So I have to be aware of all of that. And again, kind of like with the risk thing, this is a reason why I would start first with the life insurance. Then I would do gold, then I would do the real estate. Now, action plan on this, and we're actually done a little sooner than I thought. Action plan with this. First thing I would do, I know here, let me flip you guys back around to Instagram. I know here it says my action plan is to start with the sacred account. My action plan even before that would be get educated, right? I should not be doing any of this if I'm not educated. So I need to get educated on finances first. Okay. Once I'm educated and I understand what I'm doing, then I would start with the sacred account, right? It says here, I can't borrow against what I don't have, right? The sacred account helps me save money. It's a forced savings plan. It makes it to where I save money, right? And that's important because if I don't have that discipline of saving, investing is not going to make me wealthy. It's only going to make me spend what little money I have. Okay. Once I've got the sacred account, I'm using that to pay off all of my debt, right? So I'm going to get consumer debt free with my sacred account. I'm paying off credit cards. I'm paying off the auto loan. I'm paying off the medical debt. I'm paying off the student loan. I'm getting rid of all of that crap because that's taking income away from me that I could be saving. And instead it's going to institutions, financial institutions, taxes, interest, all of that. Then I'm building up six months of expenses in my reserves so that I'm actually financially solvent. Then I begin saving 35,000 for my gold purchase. Okay, 35 grand is the number. I get that in gold. Now I can do gold loans too. Okay, when I've done the gold loans, then I can start working towards my real estate deal. I can work up to 20% down for a property. I can buy real estate and then I can do a loan against that as well. Okay, and then I repeat that. I've now got 3 sources, guys. I can borrow against my life insurance. I can borrow against my gold. I can borrow against my real estate. I've got 3 sources of returns and liquidity and leverage that I can actually now borrow against, use to invest and produce passive income with. So I know this lesson was a little bit analytical, very numbery, very wordy. It's a kind of advanced concept. And I'm sharing it with you because, again, when I started studying this stuff, guys, I realized these wealthy people are not playing with just one asset. They're taking one asset and turning it into 1 or 2 or 3 and then investing it. That's so critical to remember. So that's all I have for you guys tonight. What I want to do really quick is I want to open this up for questions. Let me go ahead and stop my screen share here and hit questions. If you guys have questions, drop those in the comments. I'm happy to answer them. All right, let me see what we have here on Facebook for questions. Chad, good to see you tonight, my friends. If you guys have questions, throw them down. Eric Whitaker, good to see you. Brad Reese says, rich make the rules. Why not follow them and become rich? True. Rich too. That's super true, Brad. Chad Hanna, Googleable is totally a word. Good to see you, Eric. Good to see you, Evo. Sean Carroll says, can you do it with silver too, or does that fluctuate too much to borrow against? So Sean, that's a really good question. So Sean is asking about that gold loan that I talked about. Can you borrow against silver too? You can borrow against silver. Now, silver is more volatile, meaning it goes more up and down in price. So there's more risk for a margin call. Remember, we talked about if I buy $100,000 worth and it drops down too low, then I've either got to pay off my loan or I've got to buy more. There's a higher chance of that happening if I do it with silver. So I don't do too much silver with this. I'm about to do a gold loan next week, actually, and maybe 10% of it will be in silver, but I'm not doing very much. Eric says, become your own bank. That's really the concept. Yeah. Why would we want to pay interest to anyone else? Eric Whitaker says, should you leverage all 3 of those independently or under an umbrella of a corporation, trust, or an LLC? That's a good question. So Eric, initially I would do these individually. The reason why is if I'm not accredited yet, I don't want to start a trust. Accredited means I have $1 million net worth. If I start a trust, then I have to actually hit 5 million to become accredited. So I can kind of shoot myself in the foot by starting a trust too early. So I would do all of these just by myself. I might have, a LLC and file as a sole proprietor or S corp or whatever, but I want to make sure that the assets I own are held by me. Right? At the end of the day, I'm investing. I have to be the one that becomes accredited. So if I've hit 5 million in net worth, then I could do these through a trust or through a corporation. Ryan Seacat says, I appreciate you guys. Thanks, Ryan. It's great to see you here tonight. What's up, Reggie? Eric says, thank you. Awesome. Awesome. I thought I saw some questions on Zoom. Let's see what we got on Zoom tonight. John, great to see you here tonight. Chat. What do we have in the chat here? Perry says, I would like to see real people on the webinar who are actually doing this. Can you transform term life insurance into whole life insurance? Perry, so we can't have you, we can't show you our clients' information is the best way I can put that, but I understand what you're saying. You cannot transform term life into whole life. It's one or the other. So you're either going to own term life or you're going to own whole life separately. You could have both policies. Perry says this is hard money lending at 12% rates. I have a deal that's only 401, that's only 40K. How can I borrow from the group? So Perry, we don't extend loans. Our clients don't extend loans to other clients. They're only done with accredited investment funds. So that would be a totally different deal. This is not hard money though. Again, I totally understand what you're saying. That's not what we do really though. Let's see, any other questions? Perry says there's a one-time admin fee along with your monthly contribution. What happens if there's a life issue that causes you not to make the next payment? I'm assuming Perry is referring to the life insurance. So what Perry is saying is that if you're paying your life insurance premium, you're contributing to your sacred account. What happens if you can't make the next payment? So A, produce more income. You should never not be able to save money. If you can't, that's a problem. B, if that does happen to you, you can borrow from your cash value to pay your premium and then pay yourself back later. C, if you don't want to do that, you can skip a month and double up the next month. D, if you can't do any of those things, you can reduce the size of your policy. It's very tedious and a lot of paperwork and not worth doing, but you can do that. What is a first lien HELOC? Is that different from a regular HELOC or the same? So a first lien HELOC, this is going to be a property that is replacing your mortgage. Okay, so if you have a first lien HELOC, it's not a mortgage and then you have a HELOC on your equity. It's you have a HELOC only. There's no mortgage. So it pays off the entire mortgage and it turns your entire house into a line of credit or your entire fourplex, duplex, whatever it might be. Would you need to have good credit? That's a good question. So Perry's asking, do you need to have good credit? Yes, you do. You need to have at least a 700 credit score, if not higher. So those are the qualifications to get a good line of credit. All right, a couple more questions here on Facebook. Let me see if Instagram has any good questions. Sometimes these guys do. Awesome. Great to see everyone on Instagram tonight. I don't see anything worthwhile on Instagram questions yet. Ice Cold Bank says, I love the advice. Awesome. I'm glad you're getting something out of it. Can I get V-Bucks? I believe it's pronounced Starbucks, and you can buy coffee whenever you want to. You don't have to ask me. Cool. I don't see anything on Instagram. So guys, Instagram is about to run out of time. I'm going to sign you guys out here. We'll stay on for Facebook and Zoom. I like Instagram, guys, but I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Idiocracy. Sometimes I feel like the Instagram viewers are kind of like that. I mean, not all of them. Sometimes we get some intelligent comments. Sometimes I see just the F word 7 times in the comments, and it's like, what is this person mentally doing right now? Liam, great to see you. So Ryan Seacats has a good question. He says, how many times can you reinvest before you become too extended? So Ryan, that basically comes down to how much equity you have, right? So loans happen on a percentage of value on the amount of money you actually have. So if I have $100,000 worth of real estate and I borrow against that at 90% or 80%, I've now basically saturated $80,000. I've got 20 grand in actual equity. So when I go and buy the next thing, I have 20,000 of equity. I could borrow against that 20,000 if there's enough. So the bigger deals I do, the more I'm able to do that. The smaller deals I do, the harder it's going to be. I hope that answers your question, Ryan. It looks like we have a couple people that have seen Idiocracy. You totally get my reference then. All right, let's see if there's any more questions here on Zoom before we sign things out here tonight. Okay, I don't see any more questions on Zoom. If you guys do have anything else, feel free to hit me up. If you're just watching this and you want to learn more about this, I'm going to drop a couple of links in the comments on Facebook. If you go to membership.jerryfetta.com, you can get free access to Wealth Dynamics University. If you liked this course, it's full of programs like this. There's hundreds of segments, hundreds of hours of content on finances, wealth, taxes, investing, saving, life insurance, real estate, all of that stuff. It's available for you. Aaron says, Jerry, how did you escape poverty? So I don't really think it's something I look, that's a good question. I don't look back at it and think like I escaped from it. It's something that, mentally I did to myself. I think if somebody is in poverty, it's a self-created condition. So it wasn't something that was like after me and I had to escape from. It was something that I was causing day in and day out, right? So the way that I thought, the way that I handled my money, and the way that I grew out of that, rather than saying escape, the way that I grew out of that is I started again studying the top 1% and looking at what are they doing. And as I started seeing what they were doing, I started mimicking it, reading more, learning more, and that's what grew me out of that mindset. So I hope that answers your question. I think that's all the questions we have tonight. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. I will talk to you all next week.